see her sitting there now. Okay, we'll go over there and find it. Go, attack. The lady.
Good morning, friends. My name is Dr. Giovanda Norman, and in support of Health Ministries, I'm going to be sharing some responses to questions that were presented or feedback from my last presentation. Some of these questions were pretty deep, so I've framed them or reframed them in a way where they'll be relevant to a common person's everyday health. For those of you who weren't here when I did my presentation, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I'm licensed in the states of California and Texas, and I provide direct care for people struggling with mild, moderate to severe mental illness that includes challenges like depression, psychosis, trauma, anger and aggression, various addictions, and disorders that are related to people doing things in a persistent manner, things like that. People who struggle with relationships and within families. So I have the list of questions, and I'm going to also try to do these in a way where it will make sense and bring them all together. So the first question someone asked was, what made me go into this field? So I have a very long, I had a long professional and academic road to becoming a clinical psychologist, because when I first started, I said, I want to be a pathologist, but when I got there, I was like, oh, this is too hard, I need to do something else. So I ended up, I started out in criminology. I completed my bachelor's in criminology, and then I went on to the master's program in addiction studies. And while I was in that program, I got introduced to the juvenile justice system. A lot of the challenges in the juvenile justice system were associated with addictions. And as my research study that I had to do in the master's program was on how parenting, on the model of parenting, how that influenced the juvenile justice system. And once I recognized that a lot of what I was reading, it was a literature-based, this was a literature-based study. A lot of what I was reading was really grounded in challenges that parents had, either with the practice of parenting or with trauma and their own experience with their own parents. So with time, I made a decision that, okay, am I gonna be helpful? If I'm gonna be helpful to the community, I need to decide to do something that's gonna be a little bit more relevant than working in the corrections. So I changed to psychology, to the psychology master's program. From the master's in psychology, then I went into clinical psychology because I learned, once again, that I can't practice without a license. And if you're interested in, or if you're in the process of working on your career, your road to your career, how you do that is identify what you want to do and then work back, find a position that you want, and then look at what all the requirements were. And that's how I found out I needed a license. And then I looked up all the requirements for a license, and having a doctorate in clinical psychology was one of those requirements. So that's that answer. Someone asked, are there studies that have been conducted that identify the differences on how people cope with daily life with severe mental illness or severe challenges with mental health based on how or whether they have a strong faith in God? And the answer is yes. And if you saw my presentation, you heard me say it's huge, right? Because right now there are actually, within our government, there are programs that are training professionals to work with people based on their faith. And that's what we have to do anyway as clinical psychologists. We have to learn so for myself, I learned about Buddhism, Catholicism. We have to learn about all these different faiths because we're serving a wide population. So what people are learning is a lot, because our faith helps, it's how we live and the framework of how we interact with others is rooted in our faith. So professionals are starting to be more intentional about making sure that there are programs in place that help people to first ask people, okay, what do you believe? What is that supposed to look like for you? And so yes, there are so many studies, and there have even been studies where researchers, so that for people who have to see results, where the different parts of the brain light up when people are praying. So yes, that is something that's studied a lot. What are some theoretical approaches and concepts? So how I think this would best be relate to on a personal level for mental health is just knowing to be able to ask your clinician. So for me, there are models, theoretical approaches, interventions. So the theoretical model could be either the recovery model, medical model, and there may be thousands other models, but those are the two models I lean on. So recovery model means you're the expert. It's usually used with people who struggle with addictions and trauma. And it means, you've been living in your skin all your life. You know what's going on with you. I'm here to help usher you through to where you want to be. And we work together to identify your goals. Medical model means I'm the expert. I'm the one with all the education. I tell you, based on my history of seeing clients and my expertise, that this is what usually happens with people who are struggling with what you're experiencing, and this is the treatment plan that I've laid out for you based on what I think is best for you. So what I usually do, if the person is not severely mentally ill or doesn't have any severe cognitive issues, then I use a combination of both. And that just means that if people are struggling with mental illness, or if they're struggling with different things and they're not aware, they don't have a level of awareness or insight to what they're experiencing, then I tend to default to psychoeducation, and I say, well, usually families struggle with this, and this. What have you seen in your family? So then I'll encourage them as a family to go back and do some self-monitoring, or if it's an individual, go back and do some self-monitoring and see where they are. So a lot of clinical psychologists right now, research studies support using cognitive behavioral as a theoretical approach, mainly because it forces people to stop and really think about what people are doing, think about what the experience is, and you'll notice a lot of people I've noticed in my experience, a lot of people improve significantly just taking that time out to really have an opportunity to think, because life is so fast-paced, they haven't had an opportunity to just stop and say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. Our clients routinely assessed for health problems before being referred to a clinical psychologist. This is a really good question. I don't have much time. What I'll say is usually the referral is coming from a healthcare provider, the primary care physician, or a treatment facility. And so they've already conducted their assessment, and they'll provide a thick assessment for me to review prior to conducting my assessment. A lot of times what I see is clients will share one thing with a healthcare professional, but then they'll come in with me and they'll share all these different things, or they'll be talking to me and they say, oh yeah, and my mom was diagnosed with cancer. Well, that has a significant impact on how somebody is experiencing their day-to-day. So different things will come out throughout the treatment process, but yes, people are usually assessed for health problems. And if they aren't, it's something that we ask in our assessment, because there are sub-diagnoses related to physical illness that impact healthcare. And one of those things, I just have tiny bit of time yet, but vitamin D deficiency impacts, can present as a major depressive disorder. Same thing with low testosterone in males, which usually starts happening around 35. That can present as major depressive disorder. That's all I have time for, but I really appreciate you all taking time to listen, and I thank the church for being able to set the stage, and Dr. Prince and Dr. Burrow for having the insight to share this, and you all have a wonderful Sabbath.